is a series of events where design mentors come together to provide tips and insights into the how-tos and the what should I do's of building and navigating a successful career. And today we're doing something a little bit different. We're doing an AMA and Ask Me Anything, a bit of a fireside chat with two awesome guests where we'll get valuable insight on the job hunt from their perspective as hiring managers. But first, let me introduce myself and ADPList, what to expect for this event. So my name's Ying Yao. Hello. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a senior UX designer at Honeywell, co-organizer of Ladies That UX Atlanta, and a design mentor here on ADPList and on Design Buddies. And what is ADPList? It's short for Amazing Design People List. It is a global community for making genuine connections, a platform where people can find, book, and meet mentors from all around the world. So our mission is to foster an inclusive space and support network for designers to come together, learn from each other, and strive to be better. If you haven't had a chance to check our community out, please head over to adplist.org after this event. All right, some of our community milestones that we're super proud of. This has been updated, so the numbers are bigger and badder. So since ADPList started last year, we have grown a bunch. We now have over 3,000 mentors on the platform, leading to over 12,000 one-on-one sessions. We have hosted over 100 events, tackling a variety of topics. And pro tip, a lot of these events are recorded and shared on our ADPList YouTube channel. So with our platform touching over 70 countries, we're very proud of the global impact we have. Okay, and then our guidelines, our house rules for this event. So heads up, this is recorded. Yes, you being here is giving us your consent, and this recorded video will be available on our YouTube channel. We have a handy Pigeonhole link, which we will use for the Q&A. So this is what you will use to submit questions for our guests, as well as vote for what questions you want us to tackle, as well as no hate speech or discriminatory behavior, please. As is our tradition, we will take a group selfie, a family portrait in just a moment. And then finally, please share your takeaways, your lessons learned on social media by tagging at ADPList and using the hashtag AmazingTogether. Okay, with that, I hope you guys have your brightest smiles on. We're gonna do a family picture together before we kick off the event. And I believe Mashope is pressing the camera button on us.
No worries. Thank you so much. So please, let's have our cameras on. Let's get those smiles. I can see amazing people here. Gina on the call. We know Na Kerry. Okay, so I will be taking some pictures and I'll go through the slides. So I'll be quick about this. 3, 2, 1, slide 1. Please hold your poses. I'll go to the next screen now. 3, 2, 1, slide 2. Thank you so much. And I'm moving to the next slide. 3, 2, 1. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. Now the next one. 3, 2, 1. And I'll quickly brush to the remaining quickly so I can pass this on to Yang. And I think that is it. Thank you so much. Back to you, Yang. Ying, sorry.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So we're starting the event now. So while you're job hunting, you work hard to prepare resumes, your portfolios, and your interviews in order to land that dream job. However, have you ever thought about what it's like from the other side of the job hunt and how you can increase your chances of landing that offer? So our guest speakers today, Miguel M. from NYC and Company and Serene Wong from Snake Studios, will share their tips and firsthand experiences so you can build that better relationship with the hiring manager and find out what key factors they're looking for in an ideal candidate. So Miguel and Serene, if you want, can unmute yourselves, give a short introduction on who you are, your role, what you're all about, and then we'll start with the first question.
I guess Miguel is a gentleman. He's pointing at me to go first. I'm Serene. I am a design director on the digital side at Snake Studios. I'm currently based out of Toronto. I've had about more than 8 years of experience in the digital now, and before digital, I was in print. It's been a really great journey to get to where I am today, because if you think about it, pre-pandemic, nobody used QR codes. Now everybody uses QR codes. And that just goes to show how much and how often the digital industry changes. And that's what I truly enjoy about it. And now I'm just given an opportunity to empower others that work with me to do the best that they can in the projects that they want to work on. So I'm really happy where I am and to share this experience with everyone. And Miguel.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Shout out ADPs for having me, for having us. I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation. Hey, everyone, nice to meet you. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Miguel. On the interwebs, I go as Miguel Makes because I just found out from my last session teaching just now that I love alliteration. So I think that's where that came from. I am Director of Product Design at NYC & Company. NYC & Company is New York City's marketing/tourism department. And I also, probably not as talented as Serene, but I also have 8 years of experience, around 8 years. It's been a really interesting journey for me. I started off as a front-end developer, and then I navigated my way into UX design while doing a brief stint as a UI designer. And most recently, I've just fallen in love with education and mentoring. So I've worked at a few boot camps, recently started my own educational initiative named Inclusion Design Lab. And I'm super excited to get to know y'all more a little bit tonight and have this conversation. Thanks again, ADPList.
Awesome, solid, nice to wrap yourselves up in that beautiful intro for you two. And we're going to start off with the first question. My understanding is that most people are here to talk about how they can, leverage their resumes, their portfolios, and their interviews. So let's start off with portfolios and get your general recommendation of how to, strongly structure a portfolio so that it makes a positive impact when hiring managers such as yourselves take a look at them.
I can answer first. I was like, I look out for aesthetics. First of all, if you're applying as a designer, then I want to know that your skills of designer is there. And that means aesthetics, not only with your portfolio as a holistic view, but also the deep dive into all of your work. These days, for example, a lot of things are called digital, but people who apply might not necessarily understand digital the way that my studio understands digital, for example. So it's about catering and tailoring your portfolio in order to showcase that you are the best designer for this role. If you don't have projects that are catered to me or the industry that you're applying to, then you can always create stuff on your own. You can create redesigns or case studies, anything that kind of gets you out there and shows your experience in the industry so that we can be like, wow, this person is really great. They might not have had client work, but they've taken the initiative to kind of determine their own thoughts and feelings about what should change and how we can improve design and make your own interpretation of it. So that was a lot. I'm gonna take a pause, Miguel.
I love everything you said, especially because of the perspective that Serena is coming from. I really do think that it depends on what hiring manager you're asking, what kind of company they represent. But for me specifically, what I look for in a portfolio changes depending on the role that I'm hiring for, the level that I'm hiring at. I do tend to give some grace depending on the experience of the person. But I do think that if you're applying for a more technical design role, of course, how you present yourself aesthetically is important. Beyond that, though, I want to double click on what Serene said. Finding a way to seamlessly or holistically, succinctly tell your story is really, really important. And if your story doesn't match up where you're applying to, then I would recommend not even applying. So if you're applying to Spotify, make sure you have something that's relevant to the music industry. If you're applying to, NYC & Company, make sure you have something that's relevant to designing for the city, civic design, GovTech. There are people on the other side of the screen that you have to try to connect with. You can't just create a wonderful portfolio with 3 or 4 random projects and then think that you can apply anywhere and have the equal chances at getting an interview. It's really about taking the same human-centered approach that you take to design to the interview and hiring process. And so by doing so, you really have to understand, who is my target audience? who is my intended user? What are their goals? What are they looking for? And reverse engineer that process. I think it's easy for us to forget to apply the same things that we learn and practice while looking for a job. But the more that you do so, I think the better odds, the better chances you'll have.
Solid. And I have to address this in the chat. We have a comment from Katie and they said, it seems impossibly hard, I guess, to cater that portfolio experience when it takes, hundreds or even thousands of applications to get that single job. So it's kind of balancing like this numbers game of of maximizing odds as well as creating that very focused deliverable of your work to that company that you're applying to.
Can I address that a little bit?
Yeah.
I'm the type of ADPList is probably not going to invite me to speak again because I like to have really honest conversations and just cut right to the chase. That's just the kind of mentor, educator, and UX professional that I am. There is no rule that says you have to apply to 100 jobs just to get a job in UX design. That is a cultural thing that is starting to become like this unspoken requirement. Nobody says that that's the case. And I'm growing very concerned by this trend on LinkedIn of, let me start somewhere else. I teach at UX boot camps because I believe in beginners. I have an educational initiative targeting UX beginners because I believe in beginners. Anyone that's here that is a mentee of mine, I would love for you to let the world know that I really care about educating, supporting, guiding UX beginners. So what I'm about to say, I want y'all to keep that in mind. I'm really concerned with the trend of beginners on LinkedIn posting, I just applied to 100 jobs. I just applied to 200 jobs and no luck. I just applied to 300 jobs and no luck. That is not what you need to be doing. And it's not an accomplishment. It is not a positive achievement. It's something that you think you needed to do because you didn't strategically reverse engineer your job hunting strategy. And by that, I mean, instead of trying to design for everyone, you're designing for no one because your portfolio or your profile lacks a cohesive story that helps connect you to the people on the other side of the screen. Hiring managers are human too. I do believe that there are some nonsensical, job applications out there and people that aren't supportive enough of beginners, UX designers, etc. But we have to stop this thing that says you have to apply to 100 jobs. The more that you find a cohesive story to put together, and the more that you try to intentionally connect with the people on the other side of the screen, in other words, a really small example, have a project on your portfolio that matches the place you're applying to, the better your chances will be. But too many are creating too generalized portfolios, not telling enough of a story, and is leading you to 100, 200, 300 applications.
Yeah, thank you for that hot take, but I guess not too hot because a lot of people in the chat are also agreeing with you of pulling away from that quantity over quality, maybe repurposing some of that time and energy into applying to, hundreds of applications or companies and putting that towards focusing on creating that authentic, case study that has a lot more content and heart into it that can really communicate a clear case study that will, be meaningful to those lesser amount of applications that you apply to. Serene, do you want to add a bit more to this?
Yes. So on the note of treating hiring managers as people, think of them also as clients, because essentially you are pitching yourself to the hiring managers, to the creative directors that are going to review your portfolio. And if you are finding that you are applying to hundreds and hundreds of jobs, then yes, we do have to focus on what you want to do. Because if you're at a point that you're applying to 100 different companies, let's say 100 different roles, then you kind of start to muddy the waters of what you as a creative want to do. So I would recommend trying to figure out what you want to do. Try to find companies that align with your values or where you want to see yourself in 2 to 5 years. Let's say 2, because 5 is really far away right now. But find a company that will make you happy. And with that, then it's worth it when you take the time to curate your portfolio. And if you have 10 projects, or even if you have 5, and they're all quite different. And you don't have the space or the time to create more that is more catered to that company. What you can do is like reach out on LinkedIn, ask the hiring manager, like, hey, like, love X, Y, and Z about your company. I've heard about this role. Here's my portfolio if you have a time to look at it. And because I'm applying to your company and it's in this sector, please look at this project because it's very like closely related or whatever, something that, so that they can make that connection that A, you took the time to reach out, B, you made their life easier because you are reaching out with a message with the link to your portfolio, and you're showing them something that you think is directly related to that company. That way you're serving yourself up as a platter, makes my job easier, and I really appreciate you reaching out. Though that being said, also caveat, you might not get a reply. But I think the effort that you spent there is worth it if it's truly a company that you want to work for.
Yeah, I think you've also covered the next question I pulled from the audience of like, how do you cater your portfolio when you are entry level, you're not sure what industry you want to go in? I think you have to do a bit more research, right? Of like the different industries, whether it's finance, it's tech, it's government, it's small business, and just see what aligns with your personal interests, right? And just go for it.
Yeah, one of the more personal things that I can say, I don't like to reveal too much from my private life in public settings, but just to get a little personal, I'm one of those people that when I was coming up in UX, money was a huge factor to me. So there was urgency for me in finding my first UX job. So I completely understand and empathize people who are like, yo, Miguel, I hear you and I appreciate what you're saying. And Serene, I hear you, I appreciate what you're saying, but brother, I need a job right now. So I don't have the time to do all of that. But the irony in that is if you spend more time doing what Serene is saying, which is basically finding yourself, finding your UX purpose. What kind of designer do you want to be? Who do you want to design for? You are actually expediting your UX journey. You're actually making your job hunt shorter. If you spend more time up front doing that soul searching work, and you're not going to be able to nail it perfectly at the beginning. I've reimagined my UX identity like 300 bajillion times. But the more that you invest time at the beginning doing that, that is how you create a portfolio that caters to what you want to do. So to answer that question, from my POV, I think what that question was getting at in the chat was, well, my portfolio is public. What am I going to create a bunch of different versions of my portfolio? No. You find time to create a story that represents who you are. Who do you want to work for? And why do you want to work for them? One of the things that breaks my heart so often is that UX folks are so desperate to find a job that they end up working for the wrong people, that they end up in places that don't suit their needs and that don't suit their careers. So spending more time doing so at the beginning makes the job hunt shorter, not longer, contrary to popular belief.
So take that a little bit of extra time of, because like design, like UX, product visual, there's so many subcategories and like sub skills and areas that you can try out and apply that to your personal brand or for your portfolio that can help differentiate you from other candidates as well. I can't say how many times I've seen portfolios where it's like, I'm a human-centered designer and I solve human problems. It's like, that's kind of all of us. Like I need a little bit more. There.
Ying, if I see another portfolio that says I'm a human,
You muted yourself.
yeah, if I see another, thank you so much. If I see another portfolio that says I'm a UX designer, passionate about human-centered problem solving and practicing empathy, excuse my French, but y'all, no shit. Like that's what we all do, right? It goes without being said. Instead, use that real estate to say what you're about, what your focus is, and why you're here, and what sets you apart. That's your story.
Absolutely. All right, we have a question from the audience. Oh wait, we answered this one. Let's see. What are the key things hiring managers look for from a portfolio for UX design position? Is it the problem statement? Interesting. So when, I guess within the actual portfolio, within that case study, what are the things that like stand out to you, or you have like this mental checklist that you expect to see?
I mean, you seem to be the UX king over here.
No. Please. You You go ahead. I'll pick up.
Serene, you go first.
Yes. So with UX, I think that depends on the level of the role you're applying for. What they typically teach to people in school or beginners is to have personas, have that problem statement, have that whole study and exploration. And then usually there's accompanied with a post-it note wall or some sketches. And then, so as a beginner or junior, I think all of those are very valid because it shows me that you understand part of the process and that you're doing the groundwork to get yourself there. As you get into more senior roles, in my perspective, I want a short PR problem statement of what you're solving for, a list of the problems that you've encountered or challenges. I don't need a whole write-up because I don't read them. If I'm going to be honest, I don't have the time to read them. On average, I spend a minute on each portfolio, and then if you capture my attention, then you get 5. But that's just because there's so much coming in, and there's just so much like fuzziness around, like everybody's stuff looks the same. I need somebody that sticks out. Anyways, so back to a senior UX designer. I'm looking for someone who can clearly iterate the problem to solve, which is like also a part strategy mind. Problems they've encountered, solutions that they've delivered. And I don't need the thought process and whatnot, but I just need where you started, maybe 1 to 2 variations, and then that final output, and then how that got translated into design and into the full working world. Because wireframes are wireframes, but I want to see how it actually translates to the real world.
Miguel?
I couldn't agree more. I love when I share spaces with people that I completely agree with. Serene nailed it. The only thing I would say is that throughout my experience navigating hiring processes, I would say that I've traditionally been more open to folks that show potential in process than their pixel perfect deliverables. I find a lot of designers make the mistake of over glorifying the deliverables and not articulating what was behind them, what was their thought process, what was their design data-driven process like, what was their rationale, why did they arrive at those decisions, how did they solve the problem, not just here's the solution to the problem, but really walking me through the behind the scenes. And also, I don't mean this to sound like a hot take, but I do hope that it resonates with folks. You don't have to pretend to be perfect in your case studies. As design and UX professionals, we understand that things happen in the UX process. I like to say this quote. I don't know if I made it up, but I'd like to believe that I did, which is highlight real over highlight reel, which means highlight the real, the REAL, over creating a highlight reel, pretending that everything came together perfectly because you're so awesome. Be honest. Hey, I effed this up and this is how I fixed it. That is more impressive to me than somebody who's faking the funk, because 9 times out of 10, I can tell. So yeah, process over deliverables, honesty over pretending, and really bringing me behind the scenes and bringing me inside of your mind.
Solid point. So what I'm picking up from that is understanding the time, the limited time, and of course with that attention span that hiring managers have to look at like 20, 30, 40, 50 portfolio links in a day. And with that, you have a short amount of time and real estate and attention to really grab that reader. And with that, you have to really focus on that rationale behind your case study, not just checking off like, here's my wireframes, and then here's my low, and then here's my usability. It's like, what were your expectations or assumptions going into this? Why did you start this project? How did you think it was going to go? What mistakes did you made? How would you do it differently? Like those are the really like juicy parts that we want to read in a portfolio that helps differentiate, because every single person, even if they're tackling the same type of case study or problem, is going to go through a different way than another person. And what helps with that is, a tip for me is to document and to journal your accomplishments and achievements, you know, whether at a frequency that works well for you as you're making progress through that case study, right? Whether it's daily, weekly, bi-weekly, it's just, what did I achieve? What mistakes that I made? What do I want people to like really take away from what I accomplished here? Those are those raw notes that you put into your case study that really make it pop. Because speaking from my experience, it's really hard to update a portfolio when it's like 6 months to a year out and you forget all of those like details. Calling myself out here. Okay, let's see. If you had a pool of candidates that are about on the same like expertise to experience level, what would make you, pick one over the other? Like what would really like seem to elevate themselves above the rest if the experience-wise they seem the same?
And is this just the portfolio or portfolio and interview?
It says like pool of candidates. I'm gonna say portfolio and interview. That's a good clarification. Let's do both. The overall.
I think for me, it really comes down to the interview because I want to know who you are, what you're interested in, what you bring to the table, what your passions are. And I want to know if you're a great culture fit. You could be the best designer in the world, but if you have a large ego and you are just not a great person, I'm not going to hire you because that's just an uphill battle with everyone that you don't jive with. So definitely, I think it comes down to who has the most passion, who has the most opportunity for growth, because you also want to hire someone who wants to learn. You don't want to hire someone that's, oh, I know everything and not willing to learn new things or to work with others. So that kind of goes into the growth part. And then I also want to hire someone who's just like overall passionate and a great person to work with, because you never want to be stuck with someone that you hate working with, because it's going to just make everyone miserable. So it comes down to who you are, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have the largest or loudest personality. I think it just, at the end of the day, it's an evaluation of you as a human being and how you best fit into my organization.
That was the only answer. That was like perfect. I don't know what else to say.
Miguel, you're like the best hype man for Serene. Just
well,
like every time.
I love what she's saying. I mean, I agree. I hate just saying the same thing when somebody else just said it so well. But the only thing I can think of adding, because I was perfect, is if there's a similar talent or skill level, experience level, and then it's about, okay, culture fit, personality, passion. Passion for me is really big. I think passion is predicated on your ability to connect your story to the story of the people that you're applying, the company that you're applying for, similar to what we were saying before. And with that, I have a really quick anecdote. So I love to mentor. I really like that Serena and I are sharing stage, because you're getting the design perspective and more of the UX perspective. So from the UX side, I had these two mentees, and I'm going to say this and try to be very private here or honor identities. I was mentoring two folks, I want to say a couple of years ago, and they both were applying to a UX design internship at Spotify. By the way, I felt like I was doing something wrong, because I'm essentially helping you guys beat each other out. So after I went to church, I mentored these folks. And to be very honest with you, the first person was very talented, maybe mid-level talent, but entry-level experience. So it made sense that they were applying to the internship, but really impressive. The second person was not on the same skill experience level, but incredible potential, a lot of passion. And I gave them both the same advice. I said, if you're applying to Spotify, connect with the people on the other side, get a project that has to do with music or something that really helps align your story with theirs. If you're applying to be on the app team and all you have are websites on your portfolio, that doesn't make any sense. So the second person really took that advice and added, I don't know how many projects, I think it was multiple, that related to the Spotify mission, to Spotify's mission. The first person didn't take my advice. That's okay, because I think he had the talent to not listen to it. The second person got the internship. The first person did not. So that's completely backing up what Serene said. And more so because one person had a higher talent and skill level. So really double clicking on that storytelling, connecting your narrative with the narrative of those who you're applying to, and using that as a vehicle to express and prove your passion, I think is really important.
That's awesome, especially when like Spotify or like those redesign projects are also very popular and common. That like what would really make it resonate for someone that's actually at Spotify looking at that type of project is to, address in your case study or in your project something that they're currently tackling or what they would be interested in maybe implementing for Spotify. Went on me for a second. All right, we have this one. Oh, so I think the audience wants to double click on those factors that differentiate what makes a portfolio seem more junior versus more senior or seasoned. So I think they're catching up on when we were kind of dunking on those portfolios that open up with like, I'm a UX designer and I'm very human centered. So this person asked, well, what would be those 3 factors that would help let you know, like, okay, this person knows, they're a little more seasoned, they're a little more senior in how they're presenting their work versus someone more junior.
That was funny. You made me teeth smile there. Because I have so much time on my hands, when I'm relaxing, I like to come up with little phrases. And one of the little phrases that I came up with here is that one-liner. Let's not call it a headline. Let's not call it a one-liner. Let's not call it the H1 on your portfolio homepage. Let's call it your story in a sentence or 2. And there are various components to this story in a sentence. So one of the components, I think there's 5 that I can think of. If I can remember them all, wish me luck. The first component is just say what your role is. What are you choosing to focus on? But you don't have to limit yourself, especially for those UX folks. You could be a UX designer, a generalist that has a great passion for UX research, or you can be a UX researcher with a great passion for interaction design. You can be a UX strategist with a passion for inclusive design. You don't have to limit yourself, so to speak, but do try to create the starting point of your story. What do you actually do? What are you focused on? What are you passionate about? The second thing that I would say is I do feel it's important to try to hone in on an industry or industries of interest, so that I can begin to see myself in your profile. Some people tell me, Miguel, that's great, but I don't want to limit myself by saying fashion. There's always a way to identify the higher level industry category. So if you like fashion, but you also like health, and you don't want to pigeonhole yourself to those 2, identify the unifying higher level industry category, which is lifestyle. So you can always go up a level to kind of zoom yourself out, but still give yourself a little bit of orientation. The third thing, I think we're at the third thing, is what is your background? What is something unique about your background? Were you a teacher? This is where a lot of those teacher turned UX designer, whatever you want to say, come from. Why is that special? Why is that important in quotes? Because there are so many transferable skills, especially for UX design. For example, as a teacher, you had a product, your classroom, you had users, your students, you iterated on your lesson plans, you designed, more or less. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing is I really think it's important, and maybe you don't have to say this in your story in a sentence, but you should be aware of it in your story. What are your mediums? I can't tell you how many times I've been hiring for a web-based position with somebody who only has app experience and maybe doesn't understand web best practices. Medium in UX in terms of your story is really, really important. And I forgot the 5th, so I'll leave that as a cliffhanger. Thank you so much.
I wish I had a teacher like you with this passion and energy from jumping to point. I guess I can take it, I agree with that, but I can take it from purely a design perspective. as in like a visual aesthetic to your portfolio. So what sets apart a junior and a senior to me is overall level of quality and craft and detail to your work. So with experience, generally, more senior designer is, the more understanding they are of like scale of buttons even, but like attention to detail. What's going to happen when you have a hover state? How are you going to flow through an experience? It's not just flat design. So just basic interactions and web page designs from just looking at them will be able to tell me if you are likely a junior or if you're more on a senior side.
Yes.
How you talk about, sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry. We'll let you finish.
How you talk about projects. As you evolve into more senior roles, you're likely to be presenting more or pitching more. And again, hiring managers are your client and you're pitching yourself to them. So Miguel has nailed it. You need a 2-sentence thing about yourself. So think of it as a PR statement about yourself. What do you do? Who are you? And what industry are you in? And basically the secondary sentence would really be about like, what is your niche or what is your specialty that you can bring that nobody else can bring? And how you write that, I find kind of differs between a junior and senior, because a junior will probably be like, I'm into branding, or I'm a website designer for X, Y, and Z. But then a senior person will be able to put in like award-winning creative using innovative technology to tell stories, hashtag my bio, you can just check it out. But then that nails things that I've accomplished, things that I want to do, and what the purpose of why I do it. So like innovative tech is what I use and what I do. I'm a creative director. I use technology to create narratives, right? And storytelling. So that's like how I take what I do and create a purpose out of it in a way. So then when you look at my byline, it's like, okay, that makes sense. She wants to do interactive things that tell a story and any type of narrative. And then I think the last thing that separates a junior to senior is just like how they display their work. So seniors are able to understand that, wow, I only have a minute to impress. So I want to put my best projects up forward, and they know how to best display their projects. And that is also inclusive like all the information. So like your PR statement about your project, a nice flashy visual, probably a short statement, and then a bunch of visuals, and then into more explanatory details. Because if you think about it, you want to capture my attention. You want to be like, ooh, now I got her attention. Here's a little bit more. And then now that she's at the bottom of the page, I'm going to tell her what it's all about because she's been tagged along this entire time. Whereas when I find with juniors, it's like upfront, that problem statement, all the UX, like if I'm talking about designer, all the UX explorations that they've gone through, all the case studies, and then the designs. But if I'm hiring you to be a designer, yeah, cool. I love that you have UX understanding, but you're not showing me right away. If you're not showing what the user is looking for right away, then to me, you've already failed. So that's my last difference.
Oh, it's solid. Kind of starting with the end product, and then it's like, well, follow along if you would like to start through the beginning with me and like learn about that context. Solid, thank you. I will add just one to that is one thing that differentiates between junior and senior, as well as +1 on how you structure your case study. Every single element in your portfolio needs to have intentionality, and it needs to be clear. Like it should all serve that primary focus or that primary objective you have, say to get your first design job or your first UX research job. It should all be in purpose of that. So anything that doesn't align with that, you kind of have to do a little bit of tough love and cut it out, right? So any element that's visual, make sure it's clickable, make sure I can see it clearly and guide my eye so that it's easy to understand that storytelling visually as well. All it. Is there, okay, in your perspective, is there more weight or consideration given to designers who have had experience working with engineers and know how to balance feasibility with creativity in their designs?
If you can find a way to showcase that, yes. I guess this is more towards digital design. I can't really speak for like ad brand or like other sets of designs, but yes, I need a designer who understands limitations and how to find alternative solutions to, if there's a case that the dev can't produce what you want to create in terms of an experience, how can we create a similar experience using different methodologies so that we still have the best experience for everyone? In addition to that, it's like just general handoff to devs. Like, your life is going to be so much easier if you understand and speak their language. So that's definitely something we're looking for. But I would definitely say that's more for mid and seniors. And juniors, I do not expect you to have that knowledge, because I do expect you to learn it on the job. I don't expect you to know everything before you start.
I'm Serena. I'm your biggest fan, by the way. I just want to say it in public. I agree with everything that was just said. I used to be a front-end engineer. So generally speaking, for me, from my experience, I think one of my best strengths and one of the things that has helped me progress in my career, and I mean this in the most humble way, quickly, I've been able to ascend rather quickly, is my ability to understand constraints and what the team is able to do. There's a difference between what can be done technologically in general and what the team can do based on the stack. From a UX perspective, when we talk about handoff, there's this one line that I say to my mentees often, which is my students often, which is handoff is not a moment, it's a relationship. So knowing how to build that relationship throughout the UX process and include the engineers in your process is really key. But generally speaking, from the perspective of what differentiates, I think, a junior from a higher level, I think those are two things in summary that we can definitely say, which are the ability to tell a cohesive story, whether for yourself, whether in your case study, and then the ability to collaborate with other disciplines that are core to creating a product, like engineers, like marketing, like brand, like creative, editorial, et cetera, et cetera.
Solid. So it's understanding that you're not just going to be one designer, you're going to be working in a team. So it's about building those relationships. And I can kind of anticipate like a follow-up question of like, well, if I don't have that official experience working with a developer engineer, how can I get it? And my tip for you is like, try to find a junior developer who's also trying to go for their first, job, and see if you can partner up and work on a project together. So then it boosts each other's, case study on that. Okay, next question. So design challenges seem like a polarizing topic, even among hiring managers. Do you feel like they're necessary, and are they here to stay?
I was actually recently asked that, I think 2 weeks ago, by a friend who was a creative, and she often got design challenges. I've heard about them. I have never experienced one, nor have I ever issued one. I feel that your portfolio should speak strongly. Sorry, that was a tongue twister. Your portfolio should speak strongly enough for your skills, and anything else you can kind of learn on the job. So I don't personally agree with design challenges, because if you think about it, it's the same as asking someone to do spec work, which is just basically doing work for free without paying them. And that's an industry standard that we just generally have to change, because it is a lot of time and effort that you're putting into this, and there's no feedback back from it. So I personally don't agree with them, but I can't say for everyone else.
Yeah, I have experience participating in design challenges, not administering them on the hiring manager side. I'm not a big fan. I think I can see how there's a time and a place for them. I generally agree with what Serene said about the portfolio being more or less enough. But I will say, for the juniors in the room, just because I care so deeply, I want to really expand on or zoom into what Serene just said. Don't blindly just do a design challenge because you so badly want that job. Maybe consult with someone if this is too much. From my mentorship experience with Career Foundry, I have seen a lot of, oops, I'm still here, right? Yeah. I have seen a lot of my students be given really unreasonable design challenges where even I have had to step in and really help. So just keep an eye open to the ethics of that. And if you feel it's wrong, maybe your gut might be pointing you in the right direction, because it is a thing. And I agree with Serene, we have to stop that.
So looks like those polarizing opinions are still abound. And with those design challenges, as you said, it's I guess one red flag is like, is it directly related to that company and what they do? Or have they pulled their like context or their industry or their particular product or future out of it? So it's actually about understanding, you know, how you're able to tackle that challenge. And then I've also heard, you know, stories about design challenges too, where it's starting to feel like it's not very inclusive, right? Some of them are very time intensive, and not everybody is in a position in their life to be able to dedicate like 72 hours to finish this and then to deliver it. So it works for some, doesn't work for others. Some agree like it's an appropriate evaluative tool. Some feel like it's not very fair.
Generally speaking about that, do you mind if I expand on that a little bit?
Yeah.
As a general rule of thumb, one of the best pieces of advice that I have for designers who are navigating a UX process, especially as we explore inclusion, diversity, and equitable workplaces, I would really like for the design community to reframe the job hunt. So you are not just being interviewed. You are also interviewing where you want to work at. You're interviewing the teams that are interviewing you. You're interviewing the manager that you want to work for. If there's something telling you that that person that's going to be your design manager isn't vibing with you, you don't think it's going to be a great mentor for you, don't do it. It's okay. There are other places out there. And I know that's harder for some people to prioritize than others. And I'm saying that as somebody who navigated financial struggles when I was coming up, but I got this advice and I did not take it, and it ended up hurting me. I ended up taking something just because I was a little desperate, and then afterwards I left that place. I was out of work for a little bit, and it actually set me back some. So I think as we explore DE&I in the context of design, whether digital design, visual design, UI design, UX design, we really have to ask ourselves, how can I interview back? And that is also another way to take away some of the pressure and the nerves around the job hunt. If you're going out there and evaluating them back, interview them back. When you have your interviews, when you get to the interview, one of the most impressive things you can do is come prepared with questions for them. That won't make you look bad or like, oh, this person is being picky. That will make you look good. Like, oh, this person is invested. This person is interested. This person is passionate. This is a win-win strategy. And I just want more of us to adopt it.
Thank you. You actually helped me segue into my next question, was about like in that interview process, what are some solid or memorable or like great questions that candidates can ask you that lets you know like they've done their homework, or they're a good storyteller, or they're engaging with you, as well as to make that interview discussion more of like a equal space where they're evaluating you as much as you are evaluating them.
For me, I feel that I've encouraged this a lot. So I have gotten a lot of awesome questions. I always, when I send out that email inviting somebody to interview, I always say, please come prepared with many questions for us. We want to hear what you have to say. I'd like to categorize them in two buckets. One are questions that are more about what your goals are. And then the other ones are questions about getting to know the company. So those are both very intentional and will make you look super good. So the first bucket, questions about your goals. For me, inclusive design is really important. And I know I'm speaking from a hiring manager perspective, and I have been for the last 3 years, but I was excited to join this panel because This week is actually my last week at my current job. So I actually just went through the interview process, and I'll start my next role in October 12th, which I'm really excited about. Wish me luck. But one of the things that I asked, because it's really important for me, is can I practice inclusive design here? That's really important to me. That's something I'm really passionate about, but you can replace that with anything. I'm really passionate about design systems. Is that something I can explore here? One of the things that I want to improve on is interaction design. Is there space for me to do that here? Flipping a weakness and saying, this is something that I actually want to grow here with your help. That is something that is a little on the more selfish side, on the more goal-oriented side, that will make you look really good, and you could potentially beat them to a question about your weaknesses. The second thing is getting to know them. So some of the more impressive questions that I've gotten asked are, what are your expectations for this role? What is the work culture like here? What is your commitment to inclusion and diversity here? What are your goals for this role? Why are you passionate about working here? And what are the main ways that you hope this role contributes to the mission of the organization? Things like that. But that's way more on the UX side of things. I'm sure Serene has better thoughts for more design specific things.
I've probably asked all of those questions. I too have recently gone through this hiring. I think I've been at Stink for like 5 months now, so wasn't too far away. But I had a list of questions, and that ranged from like digging into culture, because you want to join a place where it's not that it's your family, because you gotta set boundaries, because once you're family, boundaries just poof disappear. But you want to ask the right questions in order to understand, like, is the environment toxic? Do they promote growth? Do they empower everyone? Is everyone happy to work with each other? And that could be more direct questions, some of which Miguel has suggested, or you can ask, which I do, is like, if you had to leave, what would make you leave this company at this moment? Or what do you like most, or what do you hate the most about your current position or the company and stuff? So that usually throws people off guard, and you get a much more candid answer, I've found. So it kind of breaks it down, because they're like, oh, that's a real tough question. They need a second to think about it. And then you kind of see their walls kind of fall down and kind of give you a little bit of insight. And that also shows you like the true thought behind what goes on in their company. And then I think the other thing I did was research your hiring managers or whoever is going to interview you, study their portfolios. I did that there. And then I found that some of the people I was interviewing, they had some work that I was really interested in. And like, I asked them questions about that. Like, how did you achieve that? What problems or what challenges did you go through? So asking hiring, or I guess directors, about their own personal experience shows that you're invested in learning and trying to learn from them, learn more, and want to know how things work. So everything that Miguel said, we sound like copycats. Like, yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying too. But all of those things show like just more in depth of what you're looking for, and then just more like, think of some more candid questions that kind of break the ice and gives you an opportunity to show your personality, because you also don't want all the same questions that everybody else is asking.
I never want to join another ADPList panel unless I'm on with Serene. To add on to all of the wonderful, I didn't agree with anything she said. That was all off, and do not listen to that. In addition, though, I want to say one thing about asking tough questions, and maybe the reluctance to, because you may think it may be weird or it may make you look bad. One of the things that I look for in designers is soft skills. And one of the key soft skills is communication, being able to hold honest conversations, being able to navigate different conversations, especially in UX, I'm sure in design in general. but in UX specifically, soft skills are one of those key differentiators when there's equal experience, when there's equal talent, when there's equal that, to going back to that question. So I will be impressed if somebody catches me off guard with one of those tougher questions, because that's indicative of them being able to have conversations that are realer, being able to ask tough questions, being able to answer tough questions, being able to have real conversations that show communication, storytelling, navigating conversations with stakeholders, business, et cetera, et cetera. So just another perspective there to make you feel more confident and maybe even look forward to asking some of those deeper questions, but also balancing them out with the lighter questions that show off your personality.
Nice. Those are awesome. I'll also add with like if they, in terms of like if they say like our company is very like inclusive, or we're very like focused on X, Y, Z, it's okay to ask them for like additional information for essentially like kind of proof to like dig in to say like, oh, I'm actually really interested in this. Can you tell me more? It kind of, again, it equalizes the discussion, because it's like it gets them to also, oh, I need to pitch this role or my team, this company to them as well, and let them know like this is what we offer, to see if this is a good fit. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Okay, let's see. So is there a stigma among hiring managers toward candidates that seem like job hoppers when they've been at roles less than a year, but have left due to toxic work environments or prioritizing work-life balance? So it's like, what are your views on looking at a candidate and you look at their work history, and it may seem like they're at their past few roles, they've been at that role for a short amount of time? Like, how do you kind of evaluate that or dig deeper on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Marie. I was just gonna jump in here because I haven't had, I've only had one job, my latest job, where I stayed there working for almost 5 years. All my other jobs I've been at for a year or around a year. So if that doesn't work, then I'm a little screwed, which it has worked out for me. And I'm obviously a little bit, well, I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I'm a little bit more senior in my career. So, so I haven't found that to be a problem. From a hiring manager perspective, as I've evaluated applications, I think I would always ask, you know, tell me about your experiences, why, you know, what happened here, what happened there. It just comes down to the rationale. If you have the, you know, good things to say, or if you have justifications for things, it's really, it's fairly, I don't want to use the word easy, but it's fairly, you know, you could figure out if someone is telling you something genuine or not. So I don't know that I would worry too much about it, but I would come prepared to answer questions about that speak to your length at certain companies. Anything is fair game if you put it on your profile, whether it's length, longevity, or, you know, profile, you know, experiences, volunteer work, education, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, co-signed. If you have a valid explanation or justification to why, like, toxic environment is a huge thing. Work-life balance is also a huge thing. Like, especially in the past year, that has been very prevalent. And I will say in the creative industry, those two things exist and don't exist, as in work-life balance does not exist and toxic environments definitely do exist. So I think both of those reasons are very justifiable and understandable. But like Miguel said, just be prepared to talk about it. Explain why. You don't have to be like, oh, gung-ho negative about it, but just in a very neutral way, be like, this was a very toxic environment, X, Y, and Z. I wanted to pull myself out of this environment, so that's why I left. Or I really valued work-life balance, and in my next role, I'm looking for something that encourages time off to be with my family. So that also tells you, when you're talking to the hiring manager, what their company values as well, because if that person doesn't understand or disagrees or has some kind of comment that doesn't jive with you, then that's likely a representation of that company itself. Also, right now, short-term jobs, I'm not too concerned about it, because right now everyone's looking for new jobs, and in the creative industry, there's definitely a lot of like permalancers going on right now. So freelancers who work for companies for 4 months at a time. So to me, looking at a resume, it's really not that weird. You just might be prepared to come up with references to speak to your character, if anything. That is very rare, but like if you only worked 4-month jobs for a span of 6 years and they were all full-time, then I would probably just be like, oh, do you have a couple references to send my way just to like understand who you are?
Solid. So just be prepared to provide a short, quick professional rationale for that. And with that, I think we're a little bit after time. So everybody, I want you all to like type on the keyboard, let Serene and Miguel know how thankful you are, or just like how happy we are to have them here and share their insights with us. I know we dropped a link to, I think, both of y'all's ADPList mentor page, but I know we didn't get to all of the questions that were submitted, of course, but if you guys are open to like continuing the conversation outside of this platform, do you guys have any socials you would want to share with our audience for how they can reach out or connect with you?
I mean, you can find me on Instagram, IG. I see people already adding me on LinkedIn, but they're both Serene Wong with 2 G's. If you want to reach out with any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks so much, ADPList. This was so much fun. The hour flew by. I feel like we just sat down. Serene, you're awesome. I'm going to connect with you afterwards and talk about how much I disagreed with you tonight. And everyone here, thanks so much for being so engaged in the chat. This event, it was awesome. And my socials are anything, anywhere Miguel Makes. So Instagram at Miguel Makes, LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Miguel Makes, everything Miguel Makes. And I look forward to chatting with y'all. Feel free to reach out. I'll update my ADPList hours tonight. I haven't updated them yet. Sorry, but I will. And it's been a pleasure. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Y'all's booking requests are about to blow up with that. But thank you for coming in, and thank you all for joining us. As we sign off, I want to let everybody know wherever you are out there to be safe, be happy, and we'll see you all soon for the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
ADPList team and speakers, please stay behind. Oops, Serene is gone for a debrief.
So we'll see if I'll message her.
No problem. Thanks so much for joining, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, ADPList community, I don't know your name, but were you the DJ earlier?
Oh, yes, I was the DJ earlier.